Hi everyone, welcome to Good Day Chula Vista, episode 43. Yeah, let's do the sound of the claps. This is the second time we're using our little sounds, but I thought that was pretty cool. So we've been doing this almost a year. Today we have an attorney here with us. It's a personal injury, right? Personal injury attorney. So stay with us, please. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us. So today I'm going to try to pronounce his last name, but I was practicing a lot before the show, but you know my accent. So I'm going to say it in Spanish because he said I could. So we have Matt Pare. Pare. You say it.
Pare.
That. Pare. We tried. I can't say it. I already tried, and you know many words I can't say. Your last name is one of them. Thank you for joining us. And Raul de la Vega, it has his office next to yours, so he talked to us about you, and thank you so much for taking the time and joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Good. So I was thinking, like, every time we think of a personal injury attorney, we always think that we have to go far. We have to go downtown San Diego, up north. I didn't think we had one here in Eastlake.
Well, I certainly am. I live in Eastlake Trails, and I'm definitely a member of the community, and my office is in the Venture Commerce Center in Eastlake. So it's a convenience, certainly, for the local community, and there are definitely other attorneys in the area as well. But you're right, there's this perception out there, this misconception that you would have to go to downtown San Diego for an attorney, but it's definitely not the case, and here I am locally in Eastlake, Chula Vista, personal injury attorney.
Great. Well, thank you. That's so good to hear. You know, it's right, and that's by Harold Avenue, right? Is that the Ventures?
Harold Place. Yep.
Harold Place.
Off of Fenton.
So really close, right by Lolitas. You guys know Lolitas, so right before that. So my assistant Claudia just had an accident. So when we found out that you were joining us, I told Claudia, put all the questions together, because I know she went through that, and she didn't know, should I hire an attorney? Is it just okay to go with the insurance? So I think she put together some really good questions. But before we do that, tell us about you. How long you've been here in Eastlake? How long you've been doing this? About you, your family, because you belong to this community, so we want to get to know you.
Great. Well, I've lived in Eastlake for about 6 years. And my wife Patty and I have 3 kids, ages 7, 5, and 1. So 2 boys and 1 girl. They go to Arroyo Vista Elementary School. And originally I was from Maine, so opposite corner of the country, but I came out here a while ago, went to law school at California Western School of Law in San Diego, and then passed the bar 10 years ago at this point. But that's what originally brought me out here to San Diego, got a scholarship to law school, and then again we've been in Chula Vista for a while, and have our home there in Eastlake Trails. So.
Right. How do you like Chula Vista?
That's great. Love it. Yeah.
It's a really nice community.
Yeah.
Great. So it's always good to know we have a good attorney here in the community, and it's locally you can go to his office. You don't have to go through the traffic, go all the way San Diego, but it's always nice to work with someone that knows our community, what we're about, because I think it's easier for them to represent us if they can really connect with us. So my first question is going to be, what is the difference between a regular attorney versus a personal injury attorney, and can any attorney handle injury cases?
Well, the difference is that a personal injury attorney is just an attorney that has chosen to specialize in that area of the law. Right. Okay. So in the practice of law, there's obviously a wide variety of subspecialties, whether it's bankruptcy, criminal law, family law, business litigation. There's a wide variety. Personal injury is just one of these topics that people can choose to specialize in. That is what I specialize in personally, and so it's personal injury attorney.
So you're specialized in that, but any attorney could handle a case like that. They just won't be as
Any attorney would be technically qualified to do so,
Right.
but naturally, when selecting an attorney, you want to choose someone who is specializing in your particular situation.
Right.
So,
Okay. And when should I hire a personal injury lawyer?
the best advice on that is as soon as possible after you've been involved in an accident. And it's important to retain counsel right away for a couple of different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, you want to make sure that the attorney is doing everything that they can to preserve the evidence in the case. Number two, you also want to make sure that the insurance company and the insurance adjusters are not taking advantage of the situation by interviewing you and sort of eliciting some responses that may be detrimental to the case.
Mm-hmm.
And then lastly, of course, there are statute of limitations that can apply to injury claims. Typically it's 2 years in California. Some, however, are as short as 6 months if it's a claim against a public entity, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to make sure that you're getting on this right away by retaining counsel as soon as possible after an accident.
So what kind of accidents? Like, give us an example of what are the accidents that you have handled, just
Sure.
so people know what.
Yeah, well, so the primary example is auto accidents, right? That's the most common scenario where someone is injured,
Mm-hmm.
and if it's someone else's fault that caused the accident, that can give rise to a personal injury claim.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be a car versus a car. It could be a commercial vehicle, hitting someone. It could be a pedestrian that was hit. It could be a motorcyclist. Those are all good personal injury cases.
Mm-hmm.
There are, of course, many other injury cases too, like the trip and fall case or a slip and fall case.
Mm-hmm.
But really the focus is primarily on auto accident cases.
So for example, I have a swimming pool in my house. And I know that when I got my insurance, it was a big deal. Like, make sure you're protected for liability in case somebody comes to your pool, they have an accident, and they can, file a claim against you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the insurance.
Mm-hmm.
In those cases, do you recommend that if a visitor comes to my house and they fall, something happens, that they do hire an attorney to represent them against me and the insurance mostly?
Yes, I do. Of course, I recommend that.
That they don't fall in my house.
Hopefully they don't
Don't
get
fall
hurt at
in
your
my
house. But I do recommend if someone is significantly injured
Mm-hmm.
that they retain an attorney to protect their interests. And there's a few
Right.
reasons for that. First of all, a personal injury attorney is going to help maximize the financial recovery, right? So
Right.
what we're doing is ultimately negotiating with the insurance companies and getting the best possible result.
Mm-hmm.
Another reason why it's important to retain counsel is because it can be a complicated process. Litigation, filing lawsuits, taking depositions, retaining expert witnesses, this is not the sort of thing that someone can very successfully navigate on their own. This is
Right.
a profession that requires a lot of skill and knowledge.
Right.
And then lastly, another important reason why I think people should retain an attorney, what's an advantage, is because attorneys such as myself advance the costs on the case. So in other words, when we pay for expert witnesses or pay for filing fees or court reporters,
Mm-hmm.
that's something that me as the attorney is going to be paying for on behalf of my clients. And I front that money, so instead of the individual trying to pay for things as they go along,
Right.
if they retain an attorney such as myself, I'm going to be advancing those costs, and they're not going to be paying out of pocket.
Oh wow, yeah, that's great. It's kind of like the way we do it. Instead of going for sale by owner, hire a realtor. Yeah, you could do it by yourself, but like you're saying, we've been doing this for a while. We know what forms to use, how to protect ourselves and
Exactly.
the client. So
It's a very good analogy.
So yeah, I think it's important. A lot of our viewers are homeowners, and they don't realize. I think that, I don't know, sometimes you have an accident in a house, or or have an accident with a car with a family member, and sometimes people don't want to react. They think like, well, I don't want to sue my friend. I don't want to sue my friend's mom because this happened in her house. But I think we shouldn't take it personal. We have an insurance to cover that, and I think that you guys should always, it doesn't matter where it happened and who it is, that I think it's important that they hire an attorney and go after. That's what the insurances are for, right?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. That's exactly right. So in my law practice, I never try to sue someone to take the money out of their bank account or
Right.
garnish their wages or something like that.
Right.
we're strictly focused on the insurance money. That's it. And like you put it very well, that's what the insurance is there for.
Yeah.
So there really shouldn't be any hesitancy in pursuing an injury claim. That's what the insurance is paid for. So.
Right, and I think it's something that we need to learn as homeowners and us as realtors to tell our clients, like, you have insurance. If something ever happens, make sure they get an attorney, you get informed, and use your insurance because that's what it's for. Maybe the case the same. Maybe they go see you or an attorney and you tell them, you know what, this is not going to work because of this, but you wouldn't know unless you go and talk to an expert about
right.
the incident.
No, you're absolutely right. And of course, the consultation is completely free, so there's no harm in at least talking to someone and figuring that out.
So how long ahead are the appointments? Let's say something happens and they have to make an appointment with you. How fast can that happen?
Maybe within a couple days, certainly. Maybe the same day. It all depends on what's on calendar.
Right.
But there's not a significant lag time. And personally, I'm very accessible too. So
that's great.
We have after-hours appointments, and I'm even available on my cell phone if need be. So.
And he's here in Chula Vista, so you don't have to go that far. Okay. So then the other one, what damages can I seek in my personal injury lawsuit?
Sure. So basically, the damages are medical bills, both past and future, loss of income, so if there's lost wages, and then finally, and most importantly, is the what's called the general pain and suffering damages. So that would be sort of all-encompassing as far as, if there's disfigurement, if there's physical pain that someone went through, if there's inconvenience, and what have you, all of those
missing
things.
Work and all that.
Yeah, it's called general damages. And the bulk of the damages in a personal injury case are going to be those general damages.
Okay. Claudia, aren't you sad we didn't know him when you had that accident?
Exactly.
No, we were all happy because she got some money, like, for...
And I was all happy for $700.
Well, yeah.
You could get a lot more. Yeah.
Right. She deserved a lot more because now she's still going to the doctor and...
Yeah.
It's not just to have money, it's just to actually use it for the injury that she had. Okay, and then what if I've already taken steps independently? Can I still hire you?
Yes, it's not too late. An attorney can be retained at any step in the process.
Okay.
I do think it's ideal to retain an attorney immediately after the accident happened. That's the ideal situation. However, that doesn't always play out like that. Someone can try to represent themselves for a number of months, and if it doesn't pan out, then they can retain counsel. There's a whole different, any one of a number of things can happen, but it's not too late.
Right.
Certainly.
So in case that the insurance was not going to cover your cost or, something happened, do you have a payment plan for the client?
All right, so I'm glad you asked.
Yes.
I work on a contingency fee.
Okay.
Which means that the attorney's fees are a percentage of the recovery, as a percentage of the settlement.
Okay.
So if for some reason things don't pan out, it doesn't work out, we're not able to settle the case, or it doesn't resolve successfully, there's no attorney's fees that are going to be owed by the plaintiff, right? So it's a contingency fee.
To that.
In other words, if there's no settlement, there's no attorney's fees that are going to be paid. And the attorney's fees, again, are a portion of the settlement. So if the settlement is small for any reason, the attorney's fees would be proportional to that.
Right. Just like in real estate, we don't get paid in case unless we close escrow.
Exactly. It's a commission type of deal.
It's a commission.
Exactly.
Well, that's good to know. That way you don't have anything to fear, like, oh, I'm going to call and then I'm going to be stuck with this large bill. So how do I know if my case is big enough for a lawyer to handle? I mean, that's always the case. We always think, like, it's not such a big deal. Like, because we always see you attorneys as very busy and, oh my God, I don't want to bother them if it's that he's going to laugh with my little case. But how do you measure that?
Well, different attorneys have different standards of what they look for in taking on a case. Ideally, the more significant the injury, the greater value there is to a case. So if someone at least has, a broken bone or a pinched nerve that shows up on an MRI, for example, or even, surgery, those would all be very, very good cases. Of course, not every auto accident case results in a surgery or a broken bone.
Right.
But if someone does require some sort of treatment for their diagnosis, that would be probably sufficient to pursue a claim with an attorney. That could be, physical therapy. It could be chiropractic care. It could be epidural injections or trigger point injections. But the way I would describe it is, as long as their injury was sufficiently severe that required some form of treatment, then that would be, a personal injury claim.
Right. Okay. And then there's no cost to find out. You get your appointment, find out if it's going to be worth the time, and then if not, there's no fee. So make sure you guys are asking questions. I know that many of you probably have been in an accident or, at work or driving. So make sure you're asking your questions, and then make sure you're giving us the hearts, because the more hearts we get on Facebook, the better our video does. And the better our video does, the better he does. And the longer he stays in here in Chula Vista. So remember, give us your love. We need all your hearts. You said there was a question?
Yeah, there's a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you only represent the victim or also represent the defendants?
So can you repeat the question?
The question was, do I only represent the victim, the plaintiff in the case, or do I also represent the defendants? The answer to the question is, in a personal injury case, I just represent the victim. I represent the plaintiffs. The way that the whole system works is that the auto insurance company has what's called an insurance defense attorney who they're going to assign to defend their insured if their insured is sued as a result of an auto accident. And so just a piece of advice here, if someone is involved in an accident and they were the one that's at fault, they don't need to go out and find an attorney to represent them. They just need to inform their insurance company that they're getting sued, and their insurance company is going to assign an attorney to them.
Okay.
And so, on the plaintiff side, that's where you do need to go out and find an attorney that is a good fit for you, and someone that, is willing to take on your case, and that's where I come into the equation. So I represent the plaintiffs only.
And are you bilingual?
I'm not personally, but my wife, Patty, is, and
okay.
she helps me in the office. So if there's any Spanish speakers, and I have a lot of clients that just speak Spanish, so yeah, by all means.
That's great. Yeah, so if you feel more comfortable in Spanish, she does speak Spanish, so that's great.
Yeah.
Especially because it's your wife, so you guys are in the same office. And
Yeah, and she's from South Bay, so she's very familiar with the area and completely bilingual. So
good. Perfect. Okay, that was the only question so far, right?
Yes.
Okay, so then let's move to the next one. What type of cases do you handle? So you went over that, right? The car.
Yeah, so again, it's primarily car accidents, but the car accidents could be a variety. It could be two cars that are hit. It could be a commercial vehicle hitting someone, a motorcyclist, pedestrian as well. The pedestrian cases tend to be especially valuable because naturally, if someone's hit and they're outside of a vehicle, they're going to be unprotected completely, so
Right.
you're going to have much more significant injuries. But and those would be the most common. But you can also have a premises liability case. You mentioned that homeowners have these sort of concerns, and
Yeah.
Those cases do come up. For example, if there's a staircase where maybe it's not up to code because it's crooked or what have you, and if someone's injured on some sort of a hazardous condition like that, that can give rise to an injury claim.
Right. Yeah, and remember, you don't take it personal. It's the insurance that is actually going to pay for that, and that's why our mortgage holder makes us have that insurance, just in case. So that way they don't put a lien on our property. They will pay that, whatever money needs to come out of our wallets, it'll come out of the insurance.
And the other thing I'll just mention is this: as far as like premises liability cases go, just because an accident occurs at a given location does not mean that the owner is automatically liable for that.
Okay.
In order for them to be legally responsible for it, there needs to be some negligence on their part, and that could be a negligent inspection or negligent maintenance or things of that nature. But if the premises was perfectly safe, and an accident occurs, the homeowner is not going to be found liable. There needs to be some basis to establish liability.
Right.
And so just important to be aware of.
Right. So when you're saying, like, let's say a pedestrian had was hit by a car, Does it matter if it's their fault or not that they were crossing the street when they're not supposed to? It's still a good idea, even though they were crossing when they were not supposed to cross. Is it still a good idea to call you?
Yeah, by all means. The other thing to be aware of is that in California, it's comparative negligence, which means that, even if the plaintiff is partially at fault for causing this accident to occur, if someone else is at fault too, the plaintiff can still recover, something in the case.
Okay.
So, in other words, even if the plaintiff is partially to blame, it's still worth investigating because, there may be some other associated factors that cause the accident to happen, and there may be some possibility for recovery.
Yeah, sometimes the cross weighs way too far, and that happens a lot.
Yeah, but any number of things.
Right. Okay, I know Karen had a question here. She was asking if the injured person is not a U.S. citizen, will you take the case?
Yeah, absolutely. I've represented people that are from different countries. Anyone that's hurt here in California is entitled to, pursue their injury claim and file a lawsuit.
Even if they're here with the visitor's visa?
It doesn't matter. I've represented people that are completely undocumented, so that doesn't matter. The only thing that it would be relevant to is the portion of the claim regarding loss of income. So if someone doesn't have legal status to legally be authorized to work in the United States, they would not be legally entitled to get compensation for loss of earnings. But as far as medical expenses or general pain and suffering damages, all of that is still on the table completely, regardless of immigration status or regardless of residency or anything like that.
That's good to know.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good to know because a lot of people that are undocumented, they're afraid.
Yeah, and as far as a personal injury claim goes, there's nothing to be afraid of, and they should assert their rights.
Right. Good question, Karen. Thank you. You always come up with the good questions. So I'm keeping it, the way we do it, let me show you just so you know how this works. So that way you start doing your own.
Okay.
So these are all the people that are joining us. And so they'll each show you here who's here. And Merab is here. Hi, Merab. Maria Elena is here. Lilia Charqueño, David. So these are some of our managers here. Cool. Everybody wants to know what you're saying. Hi. There's that, all these. And then there's a lot of lights also. So sometimes they won't ask the question right now because a lot of our viewers will see this after work. Sure. So I think this is
really
good.
Cool. Yeah,
right?
That's great. Well, thanks to everyone for joining us.
Yeah.
This is cool.
Yeah, and then there's a lot of you. So
I have one more question.
Okay, go ahead.
What is your recommendation on the amount of money you should be insured for liability?
Okay. So the state minimum in California for auto liability insurance is what they call $1,530. So that would be the absolute bare minimum. But certainly if you own a home and you have some assets that you want to try to protect, I would recommend that you have significantly more than that. It's, for example, if you get your auto insurance limit up to $100,000, $300,000, there's practically no difference in your premium. And there are also, policies that can go up to $1 million umbrella policy, which is also not terribly expensive. So in protecting your own assets, that's something that I would recommend is the umbrella policy. And there's a lot of, insurance agents here in Chula Vista that can provide some advice on that. But just from a personal injury attorney perspective, that's certainly a good idea. And again, the state minimum is $15,000, but if someone is involved in an accident and there's significant injury, that's not going to be sufficient. Yeah.
Right. And sometimes you used to say, Jaime used to be very familiar with insurances because he used to represent the company, but the difference is not that much on when you get all these coverage. It's minimum, like you said, on the premium.
Right. Yeah. So you get a lot more protection with a very little amount of cost to it. So they really should do that. The other thing I want to mention as far as insurance goes is the importance of having uninsured or underinsured motorist protection on your own auto insurance policy. Okay. What that does is it enables you to get financial compensation if you're hit by someone that doesn't have any auto insurance. Mm-hmm. Or if you're hit by someone that has the minimum amount of auto insurance but your damages are much greater. What you can do under those circumstances is tap into your own auto insurance policy to get compensation from the UM/UIM coverage if you have that. But you just want to make sure that you do have that coverage.
Non-insured, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's good to know, because we always worry, do they have insurance? Do they not have insurance? So that way we know, even if they don't have, or sometimes they do have insurance and they just take off.
Right. So if it's a hit and run case and the person has just fled the scene, if you do have uninsured motorist coverage on your own auto insurance policy, you can pursue a claim that way. So just something to be aware of.
Right.
That's why it's important to have that coverage.
Make sure you check your policies and see what you have. Sometimes it just takes, a phone call your agent and find out what your coverage is and make adjustments. Also, sometimes you get a bigger car or you move to a different area, and I think it's a good idea to always check your policies for any updates.
Yeah, and speaking of insurance, just the one other thing I'll mention is that many auto insurance policies have what they call med pay benefits, which is something that your own insurance company can help pay for medical bills if you're involved in an accident, regardless of whose fault it was. And so it's just another useful thing to have. So I recommend that too.
You guys taking notes? It looks a little blurry here on the screen. Are we clear? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, it's probably just my iPod. It's probably just our Wi-Fi here at Coldwell Banker West. We have 700 agents, so everybody's using it. And so I think we covered this a little bit, but what are your payment options?
So it's a contingency fee. So a personal injury attorney such as myself, I don't work on an hourly fee, and people don't need to pay a retainer when they retain me. In fact, they don't pay anything out of pocket whatsoever, because I pay for things on their behalf. And sometimes the investment that I make in a case can be very, very significant, because if it's a significant injury case, we're going to have to hire doctors to serve as expert witnesses. We need to hire engineers to render an opinion about how the accident occurred.
Right.
Sometimes there's safety engineers, accident reconstruction engineers, premises liability engineers, it's a wide variety of things. The point here, though, is that I make that investment in the case, and the client, the plaintiff, doesn't actually go out of pocket for those things.
That's great.
I'm going to be paying for that, and it's reimbursable out of the settlement when the case resolves.
Right.
And the attorney's fees, again, is a contingency fee, so if for any reason it doesn't pan out, there's no attorney's fees that are owed. And it's really a win-win for the client, right? So they don't have to get out of
definitely. They
pocket.
have what do they have to lose?
Nothing to lose. Yeah.
Right. It's always a good idea to go visit him and find out. Maybe you do have a case, maybe you don't have a case, but you'll find out only if you go and talk to an attorney. Okay. So, do you guys have any questions, Jaime? Did you guys get everything answered?
Yeah, there was a follow-up question to the other question. If your assets are under a trust, should you still go with the higher umbrella policy?
Yeah, I mean, this just goes back to the idea that there's such a minimal cost associated with the higher coverage that I would recommend that. But I would also recommend that people speak with their insurance broker and insurance professional. But from my perspective as a personal injury attorney, yes, it is a good idea, and I do personally recommend that.
Well, this was great information. I mean, I would have never thought of, first of all, that I thought all attorneys got paid by the hour. So I thought, oh my God, how many hours is that going to be? And to hear that he's not paid by the hour, there's no upfront fees, he pays all those upfront fees out of pocket himself, and then he gets reimbursed when the case settles. And then, so it's contingent to you winning the case or, and then the other thing, that all the other injuries that you can actually hire him for, and besides just in a car accident, other injuries. So also if you fall in a store, right? Like if you go to Vaughn's and they had water there and you fall.
Yeah,
I mean, it
absolutely.
happens.
Absolutely, no. That's a good example of a premises liability
Right.
case. Could be a grocery store, any sort of business. Those can be good cases.
Yeah.
A slip and fall case tends to be a little bit more challenging than an auto accident case. But if someone is involved in something like that, I'd be happy to review the particular circumstances and see if they have a viable claim.
Right. Especially if somebody older, you know, sometimes we get embarrassed if we fall somewhere and we fall because there's water there or they have something that you tripped on and it's not supposed to be there. And we get embarrassed. We just get up and start walking, and then we're like, "Oh my God, I broke this, or I broke my nose." It's happened to some of my friends, and they're like, "Oh my God, I hit myself on that thing. It was sticking out at the store, and you know, I have a fractured nose." And they don't say anything because they're embarrassed.
Yeah.
They're like, "Oh my God, I feel stupid that I just hit that." But I think it could be a good case.
Yeah. It's unfortunate, but yeah, those can be good cases.
Right.
But the other thing I wanted to mention is that the vast majority of personal injury cases settle. Okay, so if someone has in the back of their mind some reservation about pursuing a lawsuit because they don't want to go to trial, they don't want to go to court, they don't
Right.
want to have to testify in front of a judge and jury,
Right.
I'm telling you that is statistically very unlikely to happen because litigation is a process, and at some point along the process, virtually all cases will settle.
Before they get to court.
Before it gets to trial.
Right.
So, of course, some cases do go to trial, but that would be the exception as opposed to the rule. You know, by and large, most of these cases are settling.
So what's the average time that it takes to settle on, let's say, a car accident injury?
You know, it varies. The first step in the process is the person needs to complete their necessary course of medical treatment.
Right.
And so if their medical treatment is just a couple of months, you know, that's one thing. Sometimes the medical treatment can go on for a year or longer. So that would be the first phase of the case. What happens after that, treatment is done, is my office and I will request the medical records from the providers. That might take about a month or so to get all the medical records.
Right.
When we have those medical records in our possession, we present a demand to the insurance company. The insurance company then has a month to respond to the demand. Then we try and go back and forth and negotiate a settlement.
Mm-hmm.
If we're unable to reach a settlement with the insurance company in the pre-litigation phase, that's when we would file a lawsuit and then proceed with litigation. When you file a lawsuit, the court is going to assign a trial date of approximately 1 year after the lawsuit has been filed. And the vast majority of cases are settled.
1 year.
Yeah, I know, it seems like a long time, but
It is a long time.
of the lawsuits that are filed,
Uh-huh.
the vast majority of them will settle between 6 months and 9 months after the lawsuit has been filed.
Oh, that's good.
Usually what will happen is it'll go to a mediation
Mm-hmm.
after there's been some discovery in the case.
Okay.
And discovery is basically information gathering that could be through depositions or subpoenas.
Mm-hmm.
But after that whole discovery process takes place, usually the court will suggest that the parties go to a mediation to
Try to
facilitate the negotiation at that point.
Right. Okay. I remember when Claudia had her accident, she wanted to find out that day, and I'm like, Claudia, you're not going to resolve this today. She's like, no, yeah, I'm going to call the insurance. I'm like, no, this is going to take a while. They have to come and see your car, and,
Yeah.
so it does take time, but it's, what better way to do it than having somebody representing us?
Yeah, what you want to be careful of too is not being so anxious to settle the case before you've actually realized the full extent of your damages. So in other words, if you're still in the midst of receiving physical therapy or some sort of medical care, that would be premature to consider settling at that point because you don't know the full extent of your injuries and damages.
Right
And
away.
as you're receiving that additional medical care, if the medical expenses are going up, that's adding value to the personal injury claim. So you want to be patient, make sure that you're only considering a settlement once your physical condition has been stabilized and hopefully back to good health. And then at
Wow.
that point, you're going to have the full picture of what the treatment entailed and how much it cost and things like that.
No wonder the insurance wanted to settle like right away, Claudia, with you. I think they wanted to do it.
I know.
Like, oh no, she's going to the doctor. Yes, so that's really good advice because most people want to get their money right away. They want to, fix their car and.
Yeah, it certainly pays to be patient about the process in order to maximize the value.
Yeah.
So definitely, what happens is sometimes the insurance companies are going to be trying to take advantage of the situation to encourage a quick settlement to limit their liability,
Yeah.
their exposure. But you need to protect your interest and make sure that you're only settling when you have the full picture.
Well, if you guys don't have an attorney, make sure you guys stop by his office. What's the address of your office?
It's 823 Anchorage Place. The building is the Patriot Home Loans building, and so right there with Raul.
Raul de la Vega.
Yeah, great. If you need home loans, go see Raul. And it's in the Venture Commerce Center in Eastlake. So.
Right. So if you guys don't have an attorney, come by his office, pick up a card, keep it with you in your car. You never know when you're going to need an injury attorney on your side. So what better than have someone that's local? Okay. So before we finish, I want to tell you guys about a new listing we have. We're going to play a video at the end of the show. It's here in Eastlake. It's a townhome, 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. And it's listed for $479 to $489. Yeah. You're right? I was like, I'll get it for $389. Okay, so we'll play the video at the end. Adrian is going to have that ready. But before we do that, so we have some people here that are going to participate in our drawing. So I'll get you to pull out a name. So we do this every I'll give you this so you can keep it. And we're having a 1-year anniversary, you guys. And because next month we've been doing already, this for a year. So it's our 1st year anniversary. And we're going to give some recognitions to some of you that have been with us every week. You guys participate. You guys send us questions. And you guys are always emailing us and sharing the video. So we're doing some awards that day. And then we're also going to have big prizes for the drawing. We're going to have... I think it's up to like $500 in gift cards. We have different ones. We have some sponsors, some escrow companies, title companies. We have Pare tickets, Cobo Banker West. Our broker, Peter Mendiola, he's giving us Pare tickets. So if you like the Padres, we're going to be having those in the drawing. So just remember, keep participating. We still have 4 more weeks to go before that show. So you want to make sure you get one of those awards and get some of those gift cards. Okay, let's pick one. Yes. Okay, let's do the music. What is it? Where is it? Who's the winner?
Let's see here. They're all stuck together.
Yeah.
Maria Elena Espinosa.
Maria Elena, yay!
Right.
Okay, let's do the clapping. Let's do the clapping here. Yay, Maria Elena. Maria Elena, yeah. She's actually a friend of mine from high school. No, from middle school.
What day is our anniversary? June 27th.
June 27th. That's the show when we're going to give those awards and we're going to have those big prizes and the drawings we're going to do. The people that are going to participate in those drawings that day, it's going to be only the people that get an award. So keep participating so you guys can be on that list. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so happy that we met you. We're going to keep your card, and hopefully you leave a whole bunch of them with us.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
All right. Appreciate it.
Nice meeting you.
All right. You too.
Bye, guys.